This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the amazing platform to build a lovely online presence. Hello everyone and welcome back. I'm so glad that you're here. Today I'm going to be recommending you 10 short classics. I posted a video about short classics a few months ago and you guys really seemed to like that video, and since then I have read quite a few more short classics that I have really fallen in love with. I also think short classics are so nice when you want a break from the longer classics, or if you want to delve into classics if you're more of a beginner but you don't want to dive too deep into something really long. I just think these are really great stories that pack a punch in a really short page count and that will maybe be the gateway into you reading some longer classics. But yes, these are all fantastic and I can't wait to tell you about them. The first short classic is The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. This is an incredible short story. It is the Penguin Little Black Classics edition. It is number 42, and it also has the stories The Old Water and The Rocking Chair, but the title short story is The Yellow Wallpaper, and it is incredible. It is a semi-autobiographical feminist story about imprisonment and madness, and it was written in 1892, I believe, and also The Rocking Chair and Old Waters are both beautifully written and very haunting. These stories will just leave you feeling quite like unsettled and eerie, but in the best way. I read this for the first time in university and college for one of my fiction classes, and I fell in love with it. It is beautifully done and I can't recommend it enough. I'm just gonna move my stars as always and put it right here. My next recommendation is a short story by Ursula K. Le Guin, and it is titled The Ones Who Walked Away from O'Malice, and I read this as well for the first time in college. It is in this edition. I really want to get this book because it has a bunch of Ursula K. Le Guin's short stories, but I've only read The Ones Who Walk Away from O'Malice, and when we discussed it during my lecture in college, we even created a whole activity surrounding it, and we split up the class because the story is a philosophic fiction story about this utopian city called O'Malice. The happiness of this city depends on one thing. I won't tell you what that thing is, but each of the citizens of the city have to bear and accept the moral burden of this thing that makes their city eternally happy, what makes it a utopia. And the activity that we did during my class was we had to figure out which side did we land on. Could we accept the burden or could we not accept the burden, and would we walk away from O'Malice? And it is such an incredible short story, and it's one that I haven't reread since college, but I think about it all the time and I really want to reread it. And I thought that I would recommend it for you guys as well because it's something that I haven't stopped thinking about since then. My next recommendation is a collection of poetry that I read quite recently, and this is I Have More Souls Than One. This is also in the Penguin Moderns edition. This is one of like the Penguin Little Black Classics, but it's the mint ones, and this is number 19, and Fernando Pessoa wrote in 4 different alter egos, and the poems are really just about his turbulent thoughts and feelings and exploring different things that just he contemplates in life, and the way that he explores these feelings is masterful and beautiful, so I highly recommend them. I know that Pessoa is so beloved in Portugal, and I can't wait to read more from him because I loved this collection. My next recommendation is The Pearl by John Steinbeck. This is a classic fable that tells the story of a fisherman who finds a pearl beyond price, or as Steinbeck calls it, the pearl of the world. With this pearl, the fisherman hopes to buy peace and happiness for himself, his wife, and his little son, but he soon learns that those things cannot be purchased. They are beyond price. And what I love about this story is how it really feels like a fable. I have quite a few of these stories actually unintentionally are told like fables, which I do feel like fables tend to be shorter, and I just love the classic feel of a fable, and this really has it. The writing is so beautiful, and I really love John Steinbeck. I am so excited to read, hopefully soon. I have said this for literally months now. I really want to read East of Eden and Grapes of Wrath. Who knows when I will actually read it. That is one of my goals for the rest of 2023. We'll see if I actually get around to them, but I really love The Pearl, and it is just, if I love Steinbeck's writing here. I can't wait to read his writing in his longer books. But if you are interested in reading John Steinbeck but don't want to go for The Grapes of Wrath or East of Eden because they're a bit longer, The Pearl is a great place to start. Or also Of Mice and Men is another great one. My next recommendation is from my man, Ernest Hemingway, and that is The Old Man and the Sea. This is another, similarly to The Pearl, a classic fable which tells the story of a Cuban fisherman and his battle with a giant marlin in the Gulf Stream. Hemingway touches on themes of courage in the face of adversity, as well as a triumph won from loss, a personal triumph won from loss, where it's all about this battle of this fisherman and this fish, and how it really symbolizes so much more than that. And I believe this is the book that won Hemingway the Nobel Prize in Literature. First published in 1952, this was also the last of his novels Ernest Hemingway saw published, and it played a large part in him winning the 1954 Nobel Prize in Literature. And this is a really beautiful edition. It is from the Hemingway Library, and it has a personal foreword by Patrick Hemingway and a new introduction by Sean Hemingway, which are his descendants, and it is the Hemingway Library edition from Scribner's. I love these editions. Scribner's does such an incredible job with reproducing his handwriting and different manuscript pages. There are also photographs of Hemingway in here. Yeah, they're just so beautiful, these editions. Yeah, I love that. And then also Hemingway is on the back with a marlin, I believe. I believe that's a marlin. I don't know my fish too well, but yes, I love this story. Hemingway is one of my favorites, so I highly recommend you give it a read if you haven't. I know that this is very popular in high school. I read it for the first time in high school, and I did like it better on a reread, just because when you read books in high school, it changes your, perspective of them. So I highly recommend rereading the books that you read in high school, which I will talk about next. Actually, yes, I will talk about it next. So one book that I read in high school and I hated, and then I just reread it and I fell in love with it. It's one of my new all-time favorite classics. I keep talking about it in my videos. Don't hate me. If you hate this book, please give it a second chance, because that's what I did, and I'm so glad that I did. And that is The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. Before you click off of the video, if you hate this book, stick around and just listen. So I hated this book in high school. I thought Holden Caulfield was terrible and annoying and just so frustrating. I just found him like such a frustrating character, and what I didn't realize was that there is so much more to what he is dealing with than what I think I realized. So this very divisive classic is about our main character, Holden Caulfield, who leaves his prep school in Pennsylvania and goes to his home city of New York City and gallivants around the city for 3 days, and we are just following him during this 3-day period, as well as he reflects on a lot of things that happened in his past, and we learn a lot about where he is mentally and all that he has been through. It is a beautiful, deep, tragic, funny, hilarious story that really mixes a lot of different emotions, and it's such a human story. The way that J.D. Salinger writes in Holden's narrative voice is superb and just absolutely breathtaking, because it just shows how well he knows humanity. He knows the mind and the heart of a teen, and I think we can all kind of relate to some aspects of what Holden is going through. Maybe some of us are less angsty than others, but yes, I just think that this is such an incredible story. So please just give it a chance. I'm trying to do a silly transition. Anyway, before I keep going through all of these wonderful classics, a quick word from our lovely sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is a website builder which easily allows people to create engaging and unique websites. I have now made my website portfolio through Squarespace, and I couldn't be happier with the results. They have so many wonderful and easy-to-use features, such as built-in and customizable page layouts, as well as amazing design tools so you can personalize your website to your heart's content. You can even schedule your post to be published in the future, which is always extremely helpful. From websites, creative portfolios, online stores, and analytics, Squarespace is the perfect platform to build a lovely online presence and run your business. So head over to squarespace.com for a free trial. When you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Carolyn Marie Reads to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. My next recommendation was written in 1958 by John Knowles, and that is A Separate Piece. Similarly to The Catcher in the Rye, this is a coming-of-age story, but it is set at the prep school, whereas The Catcher in the Rye is somewhat set at the prep school, but mainly after Holden leaves the prep school. This is following Gene Forrester as he is currently in the prep school during World War II. But Gene is writing this and reflecting on that time that he was at the prep school, so he is looking back. He's older when he's telling the story, kind of, again, similarly to Holden, he is reflecting and telling us about this time, and that's exactly what Gene is doing as well. And it deals with a lot of themes about friendship and jealousy and envy and war, as well as the results of idealization. It's a very interesting dynamic between the main narrator, Gene, and his best friend, Phineas. This is a beautiful story. I love it so much. I really want to reread it. I read it, I want to say 2 years ago, and it blew me away. If you don't like The Catcher in the Rye, I would really recommend trying this because I feel like you might like this more. Or if you do like The Catcher in the Rye, I definitely recommend this book because they have very similar essences, but I feel like Gene is a bit more, like, you get frustrated with Gene the same way you get frustrated with Holden, but for different reasons and in a different way. This book also handles the aspects of war because this is set during World War II, and the boys that go to this prep school, their perception of the war, how they feel about it, and I really love war fiction, and if you do as well, it is handled beautifully in this book, and I just love it, want to reread it, definitely think that you should give it a read if you haven't, or if you read it. I believe some people read it in school, but I never read it in school. My school never had us read it. I highly recommend giving it a reread because, like I said about The Catcher in the Rye and The Old Man and the Sea, also The Pearl, maybe you might have read The Pearl in high school. I read, I just referred to it before, Of Mice and Men. I also read Of Mice and Men in high school, so I highly recommend giving those books rereads. Also, because they're shorter classics, and if you've already reread them, then you're familiar with the story. So anyway, highly recommend A Separate Piece. I sadly don't have a copy of the next book, but that is The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. I read this book very recently and loved it. I thought it was brilliant. This novella was written in 1915 and tells the story of a salesman, Gregor Samsa, who wakes up one morning and finds that he is inexplicably transformed into a giant insect. And then he has to adjust to these very strange conditions. It touches on a lot of themes of isolation and family, as well as identity, morality, and ethics. It is a beautifully written, beautifully explored book, and I just was blown away by it when I read it, and I really want to read more Kafka now. My next recommendation I also read quite recently and really enjoyed, and that is Animal Farm by George Orwell. This is another fable, but it is also a satirical, allegorical novella about these farm animals that rebel against their farmer and try to build a society where the animals can be equal, free, and happy. And it is just so witty and clever, and what Orwell does with this story just as a whole is so brilliant. He explores corruption, tyranny, and language as power. That is another thing that I really loved about this story, was how Orwell used language and the slogans that the animals create and the different songs that they sing and chant kind of reflect his own views on society and what was going on during the time that he was writing this. On the back it says, "Today it is devastatingly clear that wherever and whenever freedom is attacked under whatever banner, the cutting clarity and savage comedy of George Orwell's masterpiece have a meaning and message still fiercely fresh." And that's what I loved so much about this book, was that even though it was written in 1945, some aspects of it are still relevant, and I think that's the great thing about classics, and that's why they stand the test of time, because these themes that we that they explored in the past are still relevant today, although they do change. And I think that is the beauty of writing and the power of writing, and I think that that's another thing that Orwell was trying to explore and explain, was the power of a story, which is exactly what he did with this book. So highly recommend it if you haven't read it. It is great. The last book I forgot to grab, so let me go get it. The last book is one of my absolute favorites, and that is Yevgeny Onegin by Alexander Pushkin. This novel in verse was written in 1832, and it is about a disillusioned Russian aristocrat who leaves the city of St. Petersburg after he inherits a large estate in the country. It is so much more than that, but that's all that I really want to say without giving too many spoilers. It touches on themes of love and envy and jealousy and passion, as well as the influence of literature upon life. What I really love so much about this book, besides everything, is how the books that the characters read really reflect their characters and their personalities. And I just think it is one of the most beautiful stories on the face of the earth that I have read. The writing is exquisite, the rhyme, the meter, it's just so incredibly breathtaking, and it's one of those stories in verse that is very easy to understand. You don't have to have studied poetry to understand the story. You don't have to be an expert on Russian literature to understand and appreciate this story. Literally anyone can read this book and get so much out of it. It's just incredible. This edition has like extra material in it, but it is quite short, and I think I read it in a few days. If you really wanted to, you could probably read it in one sitting, because it is poetry. You fly through it quite quickly, and there's not a ton of writing on each page, because they're broken up into stanzas, so it is just a breathtaking book that I think everybody should read. Okay, so here are the 10 short classics that I am recommending to you guys. I don't have all of them. I don't have the Metamorphosis and The Ones Who Walked Away from O'Malice, but I really want to get editions of those so that I can own them. But I hope that you enjoyed hearing about these books and that you found a recommendation or a book that sounds interesting to you. I would love to know if you have read these books and what you think about them, or definitely recommend everyone else and me in the comments your favorite classics. I would love to hear from you guys and add more to my list. I would love to keep doing these because I feel like there are so many short classics that I love and would recommend, and I just feel like when we think about classic literature, we usually think about long, I don't know, I feel like there's a stereotype of long, boring books, whereas I think that's definitely not the case, because these I find so exciting and beautiful, and they're short and they pack a punch in their shortness, and yes, I just highly recommend them, of course. So I think that we should all give classics another shot, because they aren't all very long and tedious. So I look forward to hearing your recommendations in the comments. I hope again that you have enjoyed this video and that you're having a wonderful day or night wherever you are. I am sending my best wishes to you. I will see you soon in another video. Happy reading.